Hey gang, welcome back to part 2 of our medieval sign build. Today's project, this one right here. So stay tuned and we'll take you step by step how to make your own. I'm going to start the build with a couple 1x4s that I picked up from the local hardware store. I'll measure and cut them to length, 2 at 44 inches and 1 at 48 inches. And I'll use my miter saw to cut them to length. Next, I want to reinforce the fact that these are 3 separate boards. So I'll use my pencil to draw out a rough guide, and then I'll clamp them and cut the shape out with my jigsaw. I want each of the boards to look worn and weathered, so I'm going to use 60 grit sandpaper and round over the edges to make each board look like it's been there a long time. The next step is one of my favorite parts of the project. I'm going to use my torch to burn each of the boards and give the sign a little bit of character. And here's where we're at so far. I'm really pleased with the way it's coming out. To brace the sign, I'm going to cut out 3 8-inch 1x4s. And then I'll set my saw to 45 degrees and trim each end. Finally, to put the sign together, I'll use my nail gun. The next step is to make the fake iron brackets that will hold the sign together. To do this, I'll mill some 1.5 inch straps using 1/4 inch one-side good plywood. And I'll cut the pieces I need to length on my miter saw. Here's what the pieces look like before I start putting everything together. Next, using my sander, I'll round over the edges of some of the pieces so that the metal strap will appear to have been bent around the sign. And then the pieces will be ready for gluing. A little glue and a clamp are all I need to give the piece its final shape. Once the glue is dried, I sand the piece to get rid of any imperfections. I test fit the piece and attach rubber furniture feet to simulate nails and rivets. After that, I use my rotary tool to give the piece that worn, weathered look. Next, it's on to painting. For this project, I'll be applying 2 coats of the flat charcoal gray spray paint, followed by 2 coats of silver metallic. Before I continue, I'm going to want to add a little bit more warmth to the feel of the sign. So for this project, I'm going to use 1 coat of the antique oak transparent stain. I apply the coat and then let it dry overnight. Now it's time to attach the metal brackets to the sign. For this, I'll use my nail gun with 1-inch brads. Now it's time to weather the straps to give them that antique look. For this, I'll make a wash using chestnut brown and flat black and mixing it with water. Using a heavy bristle brush, I alternate colors, working the paints into the dings and dents to give the thing character, and then I blot away any excess. I do this in layers, letting the paint dry in between each coat to give the metal depth. For the lettering of the sign, I'm going to make a stencil using my printer. I choose a font and then adjust the size until I'm pleased with the final look. Once I figure out the right spacing, I tape the pieces together. To transfer the shape of the letter, I'm going to be using graphite paper that I picked up at a local hobby store. I apply the paper to the sign and then cover it with my stencil, making sure everything is centered. Once I'm satisfied with its position, I tape everything down. To transfer the final shape, I trace the outline of each letter with a ballpoint pen. And here's what it looks like when I'm done. Making sure to stay inside the lines, I paint each letter with flat black paint. To hang the sign, I'm going to use some old hemp rope that I had laying around. I tie a loop around each end and then attach the rope to the sign with some metal eyelets. To mount the eyelets, I first use a drill to create some pilot holes. And then using my bench vise, I open the eyelet so that I can thread the rope through. Finally, I close the eyelet using a pair of channel lock pliers. And there you have it, the finished sign. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.